You being here right now is no accident. Trust that quiet intuition knocking at the door of your mind. Perhaps you've spent so much time waiting for a sign, a validation strong enough to quiet the chaos screaming inside you. There is someone. Even though they aren't breathing the same air as you right now, even if they've retreated into an endless silence, their presence consumes every corner of your mind. You've done everything a rational adult is supposed to do. You buried yourself in work, built up ironclad boundaries, and convinced yourself this was just a fleeting crush. Yet deep down, an invisible gravity keeps pulling you back to them. It feels as though your soul recognized this person long before your mind could even make sense of it. You find yourself carrying this deep sense of belonging all on your own, struggling to stay afloat in a sea of overwhelming doubt. Carl Jung, the great psychoanalyst, never saw this intense, reason-defying pull as some tragic emotional affliction. He gave it a much more sacred name. So, find a quiet space and stay with me until the very end. What we are about to unfold will completely shatter your old paradigm of love and finally hand you the peace you've been so desperately searching for. Number 1. The call from the depths. Why this person? Defying all logic. Traveling back to the dawn of Greek mythology, the philosopher Plato shared a beautiful legend in his Symposium. He described early humans as whole beings, possessing 4 arms, 4 legs, and 2 faces. Fearing the sheer power of this unity, the gods split these souls in 2, scattering them across the earth. Ever since that moment, we each carry an invisible, lingering ache, wandering in search of our other half to become whole once again. This ancient myth perfectly captures that primal resonance, the literal skipped beat of your nervous system. The very first time you crossed paths with this person, the profound sense of belonging rises with such force that it disarms every defense you have. Yet, real life rarely plays out as gently as a myth. You might have taken this overwhelming confusion and confided in your closest friends, and the response you received was likely the rigid script of our fast-paced era. They went silent. Just let them go. Stop wasting your time and focus on yourself. Or even, you're trapped in a toxic dynamic. You need to snap out of it. In a modern society that worships extreme independence, glorifies self-protection, and treats relationships like easily replaceable commodities, those pieces of advice sound flawless. Still, a brutal war wages behind your own front lines. No matter how loudly your rational mind screams, analyzes, and draws up every possible worst-case scenario, your heart quietly resists. Forcing yourself to erase this person triggers an agonizing pain, as if you are severing a vital part of your own flesh. You are left bewildered when you realize logic cannot sever this connection. First, we must untangle why your rational mind feels so powerless against an emotion of this magnitude. Through the lens of Carl Jung, the fierce attraction holding you captive does not originate in the conscious mind, the realm of analytical thinking, societal conditioning, and logic. Instead, it is a wild roar, echoing straight up from the depths of the unconscious. Human intellect, no matter how highly trained, is merely the tip of the iceberg visible above the water. When the vast ocean of the unconscious surges and calls out, every conscious attempt to maintain control is instantly paralyzed. Next, let's look deeply into the true nature of this intense resonance. In these very first stages of connection, the truth is, you aren't actually loving the other person for who they are. This deep infatuation and obsession stems from a sophisticated psychological mechanism Jung called projection. Picture your mind holding countless desires, traits both beautiful and flawed, that you've suppressed under the heavy weight of growing up. When you meet them, you project these fragmented inner pieces onto them. You perceive an intoxicating, almost fatal attraction in them simply because you are gazing at yourself, or the magnificent, liberated version of yourself you have always yearned to become, reflected through their presence. Furthermore, the concepts of the anima, the primal feminine hidden deep within the male unconscious, and the animus, the primal masculine hidden deep within the female unconscious, offer the perfect explanation for this invisible pull. These archetypes have always existed inside you, waiting to be awakened. You become mesmerized to the point of losing control, because the other person has unknowingly taken on the shape of your very own anima or animus, causing an illusion of wholeness to rise up and engulf your mind. Moreover, this mechanism of projection doesn't just operate smoothly with your brightest qualities. The terrifying part, and the crucial key to your healing, is that it also awakens the darkest parts of yourself, what Jung called the shadow. This is the root cause explaining why we can become frantically obsessed with someone, even when our logical mind knows perfectly well that the relationship is riddled with pain. To truly see through this, let's reflect on the story of my coachee, a young woman who constantly insisted she desired a warm, kind, and safe man. Yet looking at her actual dating history, time and time again, she threw herself like a moth to a flame into the arms of womanizers and manipulators, men who constantly controlled her and ignored her boundaries. Her mind endured agonizing suffering, and her friends endlessly tried to intervene, but she couldn't tear herself away. To her, the feeling in those moments felt like destiny, a fiery chemistry that convinced her this was the deepest love in the world. Unpacking this story through the compassionate lens of Carl Jung reveals an agonizing truth, yet one that holds the power to heal at the very root. From the time she was a little girl, family and society molded her into the quintessential good girl. She learned to constantly please others, to remain obedient, to never display anger, and to always bow her head in sacrifice. Those harsh standards forced her to lock her righteous fury, her wild femininity, her rebellion, and her personal power down into the deepest basement of the shadow. Stumbling into a toxic man, someone selfish, willing to trample over every rule, and wielding absolute imposing dominance, instantly jolted her unconscious awake from its long hibernation. That fatal attraction ignited because she was projecting her own starved craving for power, her desperate need to shatter her own chains directly onto him. She became infatuated because he dared to play the villain. He displayed the arrogant, dark edges she had so ruthlessly forbidden within herself. On a profoundly deep level of awareness, she harbored a fragile hope. By attaching herself to him, by staying by his side, she might somehow share or borrow a fraction of that unapologetic freedom. In reality, her unconscious pulled a masterful trick. She mistook the starving, desperate scream of her own shadow for destined love. Fully grasping this mechanism brings you face to face with a profound truth. Your intuition isn't screaming and desperately clinging to this person because you are weak or tragically needy. That relentless call echoes because your soul is starving to integrate its own shattered pieces. This person appeared to force you down into the basement of your own mind, compelling you to confront exactly what you have disowned. But how can you know for certain that you are embarking on a genuine journey of transformation, rather than locking yourself inside a prison of your own delusion? How do you tell the difference between someone who arrived to destroy you and someone who arrived to awaken you? Destiny always leaves its own distinct footprints, secret codes that only a soul truly ready to awaken can finally decipher. Number 2. The signs they are the one for you. Awakening to the secrets of unconscious attraction we just explored is not the finish line, Rather, it fires the starting gun on a spectacular journey of transformation. To confirm this connection truly carries the fingerprints of the universe. You will notice unmistakable shifts within your own psychological structure through the following pivotal milestones. Sign number 1. Unearthing your hidden depths. First, and perhaps the most grueling trial, is their ability to unearth the inner corners you have worked so hard to conceal. In the early days, we often lose ourselves in the sweetness, but as the relationship deepens, it gradually becomes a true vessel of transformation. Suddenly, this person seems to possess an invisible knack for provoking you. They unknowingly strike your most sensitive nerves, activating the worst parts of you: irrational jealousy, a suffocating need for control, or an ever-present fear of abandonment ready to erupt. You start to feel terrified, even blaming yourself for becoming so weak and toxic in their presence. Do not rush to condemn this dynamic as a mistake or toxicity. In truth, the person meant for you will not constantly stroke your ego. Instead, they act as a mirror, reflecting exactly what you need to heal. The negative emotions flooding you right now are not their creation. They are simply shining a flashlight into the dark basement you locked away so long ago. Let's look at the romance between Ali and Noah in the American film The Notebook to truly witness the power of the alchemical vessel in love. Ali is a privileged young woman bound by strict rules, while Noah is a working-class man living freely by his instincts. Due to their massive differences in lifestyle and personality, they bicker, argue passionately, and challenge each other's limits right from the start. This friction happens because each person unknowingly acts as dynamite set against the other's safe boundaries. Noah sees the deep repression inside Ali and uses his rebellious nature to force her to confront her true desires. Conversely, Ali brings a chaotic spark that forces Noah to step out of his quiet, isolated world. In that iconic moment when Noah screams through the pouring rain, "It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard. We're going to have to work at this every day." He isn't promising a peaceful haven. He fully acknowledges that this connection is a true alchemical vessel. Through their explosive arguments, they strip away societal conditioning, the crushing expectations of Ali's family, and Noah's deep-seated fear of abandonment. Constantly triggering each other's most painful hidden corners is exactly what forces them to shed their social masks and evolve. This leads us directly to the next sign, proving you have found your person. Sign number 2. A blinding awakening from the persona. Living in a modern world that worships relentless productivity and a flawless personal image, most of us wear a perfectly crafted persona. We force ourselves to survive the hustle culture, working to the point of absolute burnout while constantly trying to appear tough and impenetrable. But the moment you meet the right person, that mask suddenly feels unbearably tight and heavy. Jung believed a fated connection acts as a fierce catalyst for individuation, the lifelong journey of shedding everyone else's expectations to step into your most complete, authentic self. A friend's story offers a compelling testament to this second sign. He used to be a corporate employee in New York, caught in an endless loop of rigid professionalism and exhausting social standards. Upon meeting his now wife, he suddenly felt a profound urge to live authentically. Even though she never once asked him to change, his unconscious mind shifted. He inherently wanted to treat himself with far more kindness. Beyond that, he started writing a blog on the side. Becoming a writer was a childhood dream he had long since abandoned. Most importantly, he finally found the courage to face his deeply rooted fear of being judged as too sensitive, a pain he had buried under mountains of work. This fated love never asks you to shrink yourself down to fit into a neat little mold. On the contrary, it creates a brilliant pressure, compelling you to expand enough to hold the sheer magnitude of this connection. You suddenly realize you must become bigger and braver, simply to honor the potential they see in you. This beautifully echoes a profound verse from Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. The collision of two souls is never meant to destroy. It is designed to grind away your rough, unhealed edges, leaving both of you infinitely purer on this human journey. Furthermore, let's examine this sign through a critical lens. Many fear that allowing someone to deeply impact their inner world signals a loss of autonomy. However, the crucial difference is this. This awakening is never forced. It resembles a seed already buried within you. This person is simply the gentle rain, helping that seed sprout straight through the reinforced concrete of your false ego. The moment you realize this person is unknowingly peeling back your every layer of defense, not to break you, but to liberate your true self from the prison of expectations, you know you have touched destiny. This profound resonance might leave you exhausted from constantly confronting your own reflection, but it is the exhaustion of a warrior stepping into their true power. Destiny's confirmation does not arrive wrapped in ease. It arrives when you find yourself feeling more real than ever before. The psychological turbulence they provoke is, in truth, a collection of missed lessons. And that shattered mask? It is simply the liberation your soul needed to finally breathe. Following these fierce internal shifts, once the social mask has fallen and your darkest corners have been named, destiny begins to test you through an invisible yet power. Time. Sign number 3, the power across time. An authentic connection proves its rarity through its resilience across time. In the relentless rush of modern society, we are trained to move on swiftly, throwing up walls to protect ourselves from pain. You might immediately play out the perfect script of modern healing. You pack away the memories, re-download dating apps to swipe through new faces, hurl yourself into ambitious work projects, or desperately fill your schedule with distractions. Yet, every morning when you open your eyes, or during an utterly mundane moment waiting at a red light, their image resurfaces, completely intact and vivid, as if no separation ever occurred. This connection roots itself within you in total silence, yet pulsates with an unbreakable, fierce vitality. This relentless longing is simply the voice of your unconscious, refusing to slam shut a door that inherently belongs to you. You begin to realize you carry this person inside you, much like a second heartbeat, never loud, never demanding attention, but never, ever stopping. Sign number 4, the peace within the silence. The final sign, and perhaps the most profoundly healing testament, is the peace within the silence. In ordinary relationships, if two people sit together without speaking, an awkward and forced atmosphere instantly invades, compelling you to rush and find some trivial topic just to fill the void. But with the person destiny arranged for you, silence becomes the most complete language of all. The two of you can share the same physical space, each pursuing your own train of thought, doing your own work, yet feeling an overwhelming sense of happiness. Simply listening to the other's breathing, feeling the warmth of their presence, is enough to create a zone of absolute safety. This is tranquility in every breath, a space where you are allowed to exist in your most primal state, without ever needing to brace yourself to perform or desperately try to please them. Furthermore, this peace doesn't just exist when you are side by side. It reaches far beyond the boundaries of space. Even if thousands of physical miles separate the two of you, or even when the connection sinks into a prolonged period of silence, deep within your core, you feel no panic. Unlike the fears that constantly threatened to swallow you whole in the past, you now possess a tranquil assurance, a wordless faith that this bond remains incredibly solid. Moreover, This miraculous state is grounded in clear science, extending well beyond the borders of abstract spiritual concepts. A connection that penetrates down to the level of your core being literally soothes your parasympathetic nervous system. Even without them present in the flesh, the energy of that bond continues to transmit a signal of safety to your brain. Think of it like knowing the sun always remains in the sky, even on days when rolling storm clouds obscure your view. You freely allow them to walk their own path because your intuition whispers that the thread between you two has transcended mundane physical limits. These 4 signs, starting with bravely unearthing the darkest inner corners, the blinding awakening that shatters the proud social mask, the resilient power that stretches across all boundaries of time, and all the way to the profound peace within every silent breath, act as destiny's compass. They interweave, forging a flawless blueprint that proves your soul has truly found its place. However, the human mind is inherently a tangled maze, and past traumas are masters of disguise. The line between a genuine, life-altering love and a toxic loop of obsession can sometimes feel chillingly thin. How can you know for certain that the intensity you are experiencing is the call of destiny rather than a mirage woven from unhealed wounds? We will expose that vital, razor-thin boundary in the very next section. Number 3. Distinguishing between destiny and trauma. Bonding. Drawing a clear line between a life-altering love and a toxic loop is sometimes the most difficult task of all, especially when your nervous system is overwhelmed by such intense emotions. To keep from throwing ourselves into an abyss of delusion, we must cultivate a razor-sharp clarity to recognize what is truly trauma bonding. First, the defining mark of trauma bonding is that it operates solely on fear. You aren't living in love. You are thrashing around in a state of survival panic. When they go silent or show even the slightest hint of distance, your chest tightens. You spiral into the obsession of checking your phone every single minute, desperately analyzing every comma, every online timestamp. You strip away your self-worth, willing to abandon your boundaries just to keep them from leaving. In those dark moments, their presence offers no real peace. It simply acts as a temporary painkiller for an utterly exhausted nervous system. It erodes you, draining away your very last drop of vitality. Next, your energy enters a systematic state of depletion. You gradually lose your sense of direction and lose touch with who you truly are. The personal passions that once made you glow, your closest friendships, and your proudest projects are suddenly shoved aside and left to fade. Your entire life, your time, and your mind are now suffocated, shrinking down to orbit around the gravity of just one person. This is a brutal emotional dependency. You are using them as a patch to cover the gaping voids inside your own soul. The second they take a single step back, your entire world violently spins out of control, because that void rips wide open once again, sending you plunging into a terrifying freefall. Third, this stark difference reveals itself clearly through the desperate craving for possession. Examined through the profound insights of Carl Jung, an untamed ego views everything in its environment, including human beings, as mere objects to be acquired, simply to guarantee a fabricated sense of safety. The ego in this state only knows how to demand. It constantly whispers, "This person is mine. They need to be here right now, and they must behave exactly the way I dictate." This tyrannical hunger strips away the freedom of both individuals. It locks you inside an invisible cage where true love is replaced by absolute monopolization, and their presence serves as nothing more than a temporary sedative for your shivering, terrified ego. Recently, a heartbreaking story surfaced within my therapy community. Perhaps her lesson can offer you some guidance right now. Amelia is a successful, independent woman with a rock-solid career in downtown LA. From the outside, her life is the dream for many women, yet her romantic world is deeply tragic. Not long ago, she suddenly spiraled into an agonizing situationship. She became utterly entangled with a man who constantly showered her with intense, fiery warmth, only to vanish without a single trace. Torn apart by the confusion, she truly believed this was her ultimate destiny, simply because she had never experienced anything feeling so passionate and overwhelming. Tragically, through the lens of psychological science, that overwhelming intensity actually stems from a brutal addiction to breadcrumbing. His hot and cold behavior engineers a cycle of intermittent reinforcement, functioning exactly like the fatal hypnotic lure of a casino slot machine. Every single time he returns, her brain receives a massive hit of dopamine, masking the long, agonizing stretches of abandonment and manipulation. This constant uncertainty delivered a devastating blow straight to her shadow, fully activating her deepest childhood fears of being left behind. That chaotic storm of emotion serves purely as an alarm bell for unresolved trauma, perfectly masquerading as an epic, once-in-a-lifetime love. Ultimately, to truly step out of this blinding illusion, we must cultivate a much deeper, more empathetic understanding of what meant for you genuinely means. We constantly romanticize destiny as a warm, guiding light, a savior arriving to hold our hand until the very end of the road. The truth proves far more brutal, yet infinitely more magnificent. Destiny sends certain people specifically wrapped in the disguise of suffering. They walk right in, upend your entire universe, and shatter your fabricated foundations of safety, solely to force you face to face with your own tear-drenched shadow. Therefore, the core of this journey relies not on obsessively analyzing the other person, but on learning how to use these agonizing emotions as a mirror for yourself. If this person carved deep wounds into your heart, rather than drowning in resentment, view those exact wounds as the most crucial, necessary puzzle pieces to finally heal the gaping holes within your own soul. But why do these fateful people suddenly vanish, right when your wounds are still actively bleeding? The answer waiting in the next section holds the power to finally heal your desperate, lingering ache. Number 4. Why must two people who belong together part ways? Just as you begin to realize the profound depth of your connection, a brutal paradox often strikes: separation. Sitting alone in an empty room, staring blankly at a silent phone screen devoid of a single message, you drown in thousands of agonizing questions: their sudden disappearance, the icy sting of being ghosted, or a prolonged silence left unexplained cuts like a blade, violently stealing the very air from your lungs. First, to finally free yourself from this agonizing state, we must reframe this rupture as an incredibly strict defense mechanism. No matter how desperately you crave love, the truth remains. You still carry bleeding wounds from your past, and they shoulder a heavy baggage of entirely unhealed childhood trauma. If two souls crash into one another and attempt to merge before either is truly ready, this sacred bond will rapidly morph into a bloody battlefield. Insecurity, the desperate need for control, and overwhelming fear will mercilessly trample the purest of feelings. The distance you currently endure, though painful to the point of exhaustion, serves as a sacred pause. Destiny's intuition actively forces the two of you apart, solely to protect this fragile seed of love from being incinerated by the flames of unconsciousness. Second, shift your focus toward what is genuinely unfolding inside their mind, simply to release yourself from this endless torment. When they suddenly step back or turn freezing cold, your core wounds immediately trigger self-condemnation. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? The truth is, Their avoidance has nothing to do with your worth. Viewed through Jung's framework, when a person unexpectedly confronts an emotion so profoundly genuine and primal, their ego instantly spirals into panic. The ego, forever arrogant in its belief that it controls every rule of the game, suddenly feels utterly powerless and small against the fierce rising of the self. The deep resonance you offer unknowingly threatens to strip away the flawless, fiercely independent, and detached persona they have spent a lifetime carefully constructing. St. Augustine's confession, echoing across the centuries, "Lord, grant me chastity, but not yet," paints the perfect portrait of this complex psychological state. Human beings inherently falter at major crossroads. They burn with a desperate craving for an authentic love, yet they cowardly flee at the very last moment simply because they are not yet ready for the death of their old selves. The sacred demands nakedness of the soul, and that exact vulnerability terrifies an unevolved ego. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the harsh reality of our modern landscape. In this era of Tinder, Bumble, and swipe left, swipe right culture, society hands their panicking ego an escape hatch that is overwhelmingly easy and deeply tempting. Standing paralyzed before the abyss of a genuine connection with you, they tend to retreat, pick up their phones, and search for someone new, someone far more superficial and infinitely safer. Rushing recklessly into new flings does not prove they have forgotten you. On the contrary, they desperately need those relationships specifically because they are shallow enough to leave their persona entirely intact. Those disposable connections never force them to evolve. They never demand that they look directly into their inner flaws, granting them permission to keep running from their own darkness for just a little while longer. This separation does not merely serve as their personal trial. It acts as a fierce, strict directive that destiny has specifically designed for you. That agonizing tightening in your chest when they go silent serves as the ruthless momentum forcing you to finally do the inner work. Physical distance and a severed connection completely strip away your favorite life preserver, the distraction of other people. Now, no one remains for you to fiercely cling to. No comforting text messages arrive to fill the gaping void. You are left with no choice but to stand face to face with your own shadow. That deep-rooted childhood fear of abandonment begins to roar. Crippling insecurity rises to tear you apart, and your deeply ingrained habit of manipulating and controlling others just to buy a fleeting sense of safety is ruthlessly exposed. You can no longer borrow anyone else's affection to soothe these terrifying dark corners. This brutal isolation is necessary. You must sift through the rubble within your own soul with your bare hands. You must learn how to comfort the sobbing inner child all on your own, long before you can ever build an unshakable temple worthy of a magnificent love. Ultimately, to fully grasp the intentional design behind these silences, let us borrow the breathtaking Greek myth of Psyche, representing the human soul, and Eros, representing true love. In the beginning, Psyche was blessed with the love and protection of Eros. Yet this romance unfolded in the dark. Eros concealed his identity and demanded she trust him without ever seeing his face. This serves as the perfect metaphor for the early stages of love. We love blindly, innocently, and dependently, desperately craving safety without ever truly understanding our partner's essence or our own. However, that fabricated sense of safety couldn't last. Psyche's deep-seated insecurities and innate doubt soon surfaced. She secretly lit a lamp in the dead of night to reveal the face of Eros, shattering the boundary of trust between them. The very second that weakness and suspicion were exposed, Eros flew away. Psyche plummeted into the depths of loss and profound isolation. To become worthy of true love once again, she was thrust into an incredibly agonizing journey of exile. She was forced to descend into the underworld, a powerful symbol of an individual compelled to plunge deep into the dark unconscious, directly confronting their deepest pain, crippling insecurity, and most hidden fears. In that darkness, she could no longer rely on anyone else's power. She had to grow her own armor of resilience, wash away her own fragility, and ignite her very own light. Only when Psyche completed this agonizing metamorphosis all on her own, transmuting pain into inner power, did she become whole. She ascended to become a goddess and reunited with love for all eternity. Separation, as it turns out, is never a punishment. It acts as the most grueling, essential forge required for the soul to mature enough to actually hold on to love. That ancient legend is far more than an entertaining tale from the past. It stands as the sharpest metaphor for modern human psychology. The exact distance you are enduring right now serves as the ultimate training ground for your soul. Without distance, there can be no metamorphosis. Without silence, the ego will never surrender its grip to make way for true wholeness. The burning question is no longer, when will they return? Instead, it becomes, how can you utilize this very forge to expand into an independent, radiant being, regardless of whether they show up tomorrow or not? The answer lies in the exact moment you decide to set down your phone, close your eyes, and simply stop waiting. Your current agony, the bitter lump in your throat every time you wake up, or the terrifying freefall when night descends, is, in reality, an incredibly precious raw material. Number 5. The Great Transformation, becoming whole with or without them. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung frequently borrowed the imagery of psychological alchemy to describe the process of inner metamorphosis. Ancient alchemists spent their entire lives seeking ways to melt down lead, a heavy, cheap metal, and transform it into pure gold. Within the landscape of your mind right now, that brutally silent period acts as the heat of the alchemical fire. My most sincere advice to you is not to waste this pain by wallowing or drowning in self-pity. Use the sheer heat of this separation to melt down the blocks of lead within you, your deep fears, insecurities, and wounded pride. That exact process will forge pure gold, a whole, radiant, and fiercely independent version of yourself. To achieve this, and truly prepare to welcome this connection back without spiraling into old toxic loops, there are vital internal shifts you must make. First, you need to detach from the outcome and surrender control. The human mind loves to comfort itself by writing scripts. You desperately crave to dictate exactly when they will text, what words they will use to apologize, and how perfectly your reunion will unfold. The profound truth is that the habit of script writing stems directly from a terror of loss, constantly threatening to swallow you whole. Your task right now is not to count the passing days, anxiously waiting for a notification to light up your screen. Let everything unfold according to its own natural rhythm. The moment you stop forcing destiny to your timeline, you discover an endless expanse of space to breathe and live in the present. Second, the time has come to confront the most difficult hidden corner of all, releasing your resentment. It feels incredibly easy to indulge your anger when you are the one left behind. You feel justified in blaming their evasive habits, deeply resenting the heartless silence that forced you to endure countless sleepless nights. Your self-defense mechanisms will relentlessly urge you to play the role of the flawless victim. However, actively feeding on that resentment actually forms an invisible chain, locking you tightly to the past. Forgive their departure. Forgiveness in this space is never a sign of weakness or a concession to them. You forgive because you awaken to a profound truth. That brutal absence single-handedly severed your external emotional supply, forcing you to finally stand on your own 2 feet. Thanks to their avoidance, your resilience today finally had the opportunity to be forged. Offering that forgiveness remains the only possible way to untie your own bindings. Next, you must learn how to remain completely centered amidst the chaotic waves of your emotions. On this journey of self-healing, you will experience days where you feel incredible, yet there will also be sudden moments when a random memory rushes in, making you feel like collapsing all over again. Even more, as destiny begins to shift, that person might unexpectedly reappear with a brief, fleeting check-in. In those exact moments of turbulence, fiercely holding on to the deep tranquility you painstakingly built through your own sweat and tears becomes vital. Never allow a tiny external signal to tear down your entire inner architecture. This unshakable foundation of peace serves as the core pillar, allowing the relationship, if it is truly meant to be reborn, to sprout healthily, rather than getting sucked right back into that old, familiar tornado of panic. Furthermore, we must flip the script on this entire narrative, allowing you to finally reclaim your ultimate personal power. The outside world constantly feeds us a cliché illusion. The ultimate happy ending is the exact moment 2 people hold hands and reunite. We actively delude ourselves into believing that their return serves as the rightful reward for all those agonizing months of waiting. Yet, under the illuminating light of soul maturation, we see this as a dangerously misguided surrender of your own power. Their return is never the reward. The unshakable, renewed version of yourself, that is the only true reward. You bravely walked straight through the alchemical fire. You courageously confronted the darkest corners of your shadow, and now you radiate your very own self-generated light, completely free from living on borrowed energy from anyone else. The moment you step into this state of wholeness, a profound miracle unfolds. You realize you can love them with unimaginable depth, yet you no longer need them to survive, nor to prove your own worth. You are complete, with or without their presence in your life. That quiet, self-respecting energy becomes a cosmic magnet, effortlessly drawing destiny back into its natural orbit. As you begin to radiate your own self-generated light, a profound truth will wash over you. The path you are walking demands an extraordinary caliber of courage. It is temptingly easy to swipe left and right across a lifeless screen, frantically grabbing a replacement just to bandage the actively bleeding wounds inside. But standing firmly within the silence, daring to gaze directly into your own shadow, and fiercely guarding the voice of your intuition when the entire world screams at you to let go, that represents the majestic courage of a soul truly waking up. Destiny's design never rushes. It patiently sculpts both of you, across space, across time, and through countless devastating ruptures, solely to forge 2 unshakable pillars capable of holding up the very same sky together. So, let go. Call your energy back to yourself and pour your focus into your own creation. Your intuition has never once deceived you. The exact moment you are truly ready to bloom, whatever inherently belongs to you will simply know how to find your door. Never, ever doubt that. If these psychological insights touched a hidden corner of your heart, let your voice be heard in the comments below. Tell me about the silence you are currently facing, or the profound signs you have experienced along the way. Your brave vulnerability to share your story might just become the exact life preserver another desperate soul needs as they scroll by. Finally, please hit the like button, share this message with anyone who deeply needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. We will see each other again in the upcoming videos, walking all the way to the end of this healing journey, rising together as completely whole individuals.